Welcome to Imperfect Momming. Our children are constantly looking to us for examples. The term role model doesn't quite cut it here. We are shaping their worldview with every move we make. You see, it's not in the lectures we give or moments where we are actively attempting to teach them. It's in the micro movements we make, the unconscious ways in which we navigate life. We are constantly teaching our children how to show up for themselves, their friends, their future partners, and even their future children. So what can we do to ensure we are raising thoughtful, compassionate, self-aware human beings? We have to become them ourselves. No one is perfect, but we can still all be better, and it starts with self-healing. Let's get to it. Welcome back to Imperfect Momming, and we have a very special guest today, Kate Stone. Welcome to Imperfect Momming.
Hello, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here and talk about college admissions.
Very cool. Tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do.
So I am an educator. I've been teaching for over 10 years, almost 15 now. And I started working with students teaching creative writing. And I applied that to the college application starting about 10 years ago. And now I'm an expert college admissions and essay coach, and I help students get into their target schools and their dream schools.
That's super interesting. My brain went down a rabbit hole when you said creative writing, and I was like, oh, I want to talk. Oh, wait, that's not over here.
Oh, no, we can totally talk about that. It's such a key piece of the whole admissions process, especially now. So we'll get into it for sure.
Which is interesting because I wouldn't think of creative writing and college admissions as being the same or being connected. And maybe that's because I never submitted any essays for college admissions. And maybe that's because it's not a thing. So has it always been a thing, or did you kind of make it a thing?
It's always been a thing. So the college application is mostly essays. So when you're talking about admissions, you're talking about admissions strategy. So it's like admissions is about building your list. You know, what are the schools that are your reach schools? What are your target schools or match schools? The schools that you have a good chance of getting into, and the schools that are safety schools. But what you're looking for on that list is personal fit. And so the college application and essay process is about going through each of those schools' applications and starting to structure and ideate the stories that you're going to tell for each of those prompts that are going to reflect different qualities, values, interests, and skills, right? And that's what schools are looking for. They're looking for a number of things, but one of the main things is like, okay, who are you? What are the qualities, values, interests, and skills that you're going to be bringing to our campus? And what's the slot or the niche, kind of like casting a play for each incoming class? Like, what slot are you going to fill? Are you going to be our urban development kid? Are you going to be like our engineering kid? Are you going to be like our history kid? So, you know, when you're thinking about college admissions, a big part of it is strategy and going, who am I? What is like the main personal statement, the big thread of my life? And then what are the other set pieces that go around that? The subcategory interests.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I went to community college. But
me too.
Did you? That's awesome.
Yeah, I started at community college. I loved it, actually.
Yeah. I know my brother, I was actually really impressed with my brother, and I wish he had like taken me under his wing to like be like, this is how you do it. But my brother was like so intensely focused on what he wanted to do with his life, that nobody else existed. However, had I asked him, I might have gotten some pointers, but I don't know. But he got a full ride to University of Santa Barbara. I believe that's what it's called. And he graduated school with no debt because of all these essays that he wrote and the scholarships that he got. And that was just not a process that I went through. Is that something that you help people do also, is help with,
writing essays for scholarships?
Absolutely. That's part of my add-ons with my work. So I have like what I do is I do admissions consulting. I have college application essay coaching, and then we have like financial aid and scholarships. So the cool thing about all of our work that we do with the essay coaching is that a lot of those essays can be turned into scholarship essays.
Yeah.
So what you're trying to do, and what I try to do with my students, is strategize topic strategy. So we start with a spreadsheet, we put in all the essays, because sometimes there's like 50 essays for 15 schools or 20 schools that you're applying to, and you're trying not to write you're trying not to write more than you have to. And so we look at, okay, what are prompts that are similar? Like, which topics overlap? Okay, where can we use what we've already written over here? Where can we grab content from this? And so a lot of it is recognizing that students have a lot on their plate during senior year, and the college admissions process could potentially be like the equivalent of like 2 to 3 activities. It's a lot of work, and people and parents often underestimate how much time it actually takes, not just to write these essays, but to get them up to a certain level through the revising process, through the honing the craft, through just like telling, it's not just like, hi, my name is this. You're trying to tell a story in an unusual, fun way. So what I'm doing with my students is like, okay, let's try to teach the 17-year-old high-level storytelling skills and creative writing skills and marketing copy skills inside the parameters of the college essay. So it's like a creative writing boot camp for, we work together usually for like 4 to 5 months. And students who start sometimes pretty weak with their writing skills end up on the other side. Like, I understand the process. I understand the formula for structuring my ideas, which is in a way like invaluable in the real world, for anything, whether it's sending out an email to a potential employer, or sending out a sales email, or just anything. You need to know how to communicate your ideas. And I know people are like, oh, well, the chat box, the AI is going to take care of our writing skills. But what writing does, and learning how to write, is it develops it like sculpts how you think. It sculpts how you present yourself. It's so much more than just producing essays. It is producing a way of showing up and presenting yourself into the world that kids don't get any opportunities for that elsewhere, that I don't see. So that's how I view this process. It's so much more than the college admissions process.
Yeah, it's like my son's 10, and he's going to be 11 soon, and he's like, I'm going to be an odd number. That's going to be weird. He has found some TikToks. He actually doesn't like TikTok. He likes YouTube shorts. But I just call everybody does TikToks. We just call them TikToks. But he found one that was talking about, how education doesn't teach us life skills. That our education system doesn't teach us how to get a job, doesn't teach us, as you were talking, I'm just thinking how many people don't have these skills that you're helping with from high school. And like I feel like the purpose of high school and school is to get you into college, to get you a job. So if that's what's required, why isn't that what is taught?
No idea.
Yeah.
No idea. I can't even tell you how this has been such a source of frustration for me, because that was my story. I came out of I went through a really good private school, and then I did a year at community college, and I transferred into NYU, and then I went on to Princeton, and I ended at all that education, all that high top level academia did not teach me how to do the basics. And I suppose they think, well, leave it to the parents to teach that. Leave it to the parents to teach how to set goals and organize your time and executive functioning, or how to lead yourself.
But nobody taught the parents.
But nobody taught the parents. So we're all just like wandering around blind. I mean, I'm teaching stuff. I even have a workshop coming up this Thursday, is how to achieve your dreams, a 90-day plan. I'm going to teach you how to set goals, how to break those into micro tasks, how to calendarize your time so that you can actually increase your productivity and get these things accomplished. Like, how do you actually, if you have a goal, how do you actually pursue it? What do you do? So these are things that I just wish I had known way earlier on in my life. And maybe it wouldn't have mattered. Maybe if I had heard about it, I wouldn't have listened, because I was like off on another tangent. You know, I was traveling in Asia and I was kind of like wandering the world. But in my 30s, you want to create something that's built to last. And, I think kids are more interested in that idea now more than ever. Kids are a little bit more mature now. Young adults are like, okay, I want to learn how to do these things. And the beauty of it is that they can find them outside of the school container. They can find them online. There's infinite resources, virtual courses, online workshops, stuff that I'm doing, stuff that tons of other people are doing. But I do feel like our educational system is like missed a huge opportunity. Just basic stuff, like amazing companies who have amazing culture, they get all their employees together every morning and like do affirmations and like psych people up and get people connected to purpose. Like, why don't we do that in school?
Yeah,
schools are depressing.
I remember the first time that I heard one of my son's teachers talk about a growth mindset, and I was like, what's that? And I mean, I Googled it, right? Like, there's growth mindset and closed mindset or fixed mindset. And these two things are very similar to the entrepreneurial mindset and the employee mindset, which is another thing that I've been diving into in the last year. They're very well in alignment if they're not identical, just called by a different name. But I remember when they said, the growth mindset, and I'm like, okay, let me look this up. And I was like, holy crap, they're teaching this now? This is amazing. Like, this would have changed my life. Like, the fixed mindset destroyed I've been writing since I could put two sentences together. Creative writing. I was always a fiction writer, and I published a book, and when I published this fiction book, I wasn't immediately J.K. Rowling the next day, and I decided I must suck, and I stopped, and some stuff happened where I didn't have the rights to my characters, and I'd written 3 books with these characters, and I was like, well, if I can't publish the books, then what's the point of writing? And it took me 12 years to answer that question, because I love to write. Because writing lights up my soul. Like, if I had the growth mindset growing up, or even in that moment, it wouldn't have felt like a failure. I would have Googled, how do I turn into J.K. Rowling? There will be more of those answers now than there would have been in 2008. But anyway, I won't go down.
No, I'm following you, and I feel you too. I think, the problem is with looking back on the past, especially now, is that it's like, I am truly doing my very best to stay in this present moment, because in this present moment, like, especially in this time period in our world, we have access to so much power and speed and transformation for ourselves, for our kids. Our kids have it, and so do we. And so if we can ride that wave and keep moving forward, to keep doing those things that are really uncomfortable to do, we can explode. I mean, I've seen my own life have this happen over the last 3 years. It's like I just put my head down. I did the things I never wanted to do or never had the intrinsic motivation to do. And I saw the results. So, I've seen this big transformation happen in my own life just from applying a certain set of systems, tools, and strategies. And I feel like, there are students out there and there are kids out there that if they could take like one tool or one strategy and just see the results, see the impact of that. I talk a lot about motivation in my work because, when you're working with 17-year-olds for 4 to 5 months at a time, you kind of need to be able to like motivate them and inspire them and project manage them in a way that doesn't totally suck the life and the joy out of both of you. So you need to have that way of communicating and a lot of tools in your tool belt to get them going, to get them writing, whatever you have to do. Because sometimes, and especially since COVID, there are definite downstreams effects of COVID, of, being on the Zoom for 2 years in bedrooms and not being in that classroom environment, just the effects on executive functioning and being able to motivate oneself and being able to like organize one's life, that structure that they normally would have gotten in school. They just most kids didn't really have that at home. And so a lot of the work that I'm doing now is not just the essay and application coaching, but like organizing systems into their life. Okay, like how do you track your time? How do you organize your day? How do you schedule your life? Because you're about to go to college. What are you going to do when you get there? How are you going to keep track of 5 classes when teachers aren't asking you for your work, or you can't hand stuff in late, or you can't email your teacher? You essentially, the stakes are higher and the standards are higher. And so I'm finding that there's a lot of that I'm doing during that period between junior and senior year with applications. It's also like, let's get you operating at a slightly higher level because of what happened during COVID, Oh, you're on mute.
I muted myself because of the dogs. I'm hearing this a lot from educators or people who work with students of, how the effects of COVID and being home and working from home. And I know that there were some students that really thrived because of the distractions that were at school that weren't at home. And but I would imagine that that's less than the number of people that were that had a negative response to being home. And before I forget, I want to take your goal setting course, because at one point I was able to when I was younger, like I wrote that book. I don't know how long it took me to write the book, but I wrote a second and third one in who knows how long. And it wasn't about goal setting. It was just, I love to write and I would just do it 24/7. But taking that break from doing that and completing a project, it's different now. Like there's a different kind of motivation that you need when it's, I don't know, I can't articulate it right now.
Yeah, it is. Though I hear what you're saying. There's a kind of motivation. It's like when we disconnect ourselves from the reason why we do something and we use what we love and then we use it to punish ourselves. It's like almost like a process of healing the relationship we have to that thing we love.
Mhm.
And that can require like a lot of setting container and setting space for that. And, it takes the newest science on creating a new habit, like writing every day, for instance. It's coming out of the University of London, I believe. It takes 2 months to really ingrain a habit, to start to make that something that you seek out, that you crave. And then to reintegrate it into your identity takes about 2 years to make that thing a part of who you are, you know?
2 years.
I know.
Yeah.
It seems like a lot, and yet it goes so fast.
Oh
And
yeah,
yet
especially when you're not intentional about your 2 years, like it'll just fly by. But so yeah, I look back at the old version of me who just wrote 24/7, and I understand that I can't do that now. Like, or not that I can't, I have different priorities.
Mm.
Like I want to be a mom, and I want to be a good partner, and I want to have friends. And like I didn't have those things when I would write 24/7. Like I would stay up till 3 a.m. just in the zone of writing, and wake up 3 hours later and go to school. And I also don't have the energy to do that like I did when I was 16. But so I realized that I'm a completely different human, and I have to remind myself of that when I want to go down the beat myself up path for not being who I was when I was 16.
Mm.
And it's I don't go down that path very often, but there's times that it gets triggered. And I have to catch myself. Just calm down. It's fine. You're a different person. And it doesn't have as much to do with the 12 years you took off of writing as you think it does.
That is really interesting thought, because in some ways, as a 36-year-old woman, I'm doing the same thing as mourning the person I was even just 3 years ago. Yeah. Like the late 20s, early 30s Kate, who was like kind of living in a fantasy land. You start to realize like that to build a really great life requires enormous sacrifice and consolidation of resources and compromise.
Mm-hmm.
And when you think it, like, I personally really relate to what you're saying, because to be a great partner and to be a great wife and to be a great mother it's the returns on that are substantial, and I guess that's why people come back to these things as their children grow, and as we move into our later years, like in our 40s, our 50s, and we come back to these things and we reintegrate them back into ourselves. But it's a totally different relationship, and it is different, and we do lose that idealism, but we gain that kind of like wisdom. We gain something else. I don't know what that is yet, but it's something. It's like grit.
Yeah. I went through a process yesterday with a coach that I'm mentoring, and she wanted to practice this tool, and I was like, well, that's cool, because the tool's called painful thought reframe, and I was like, that's cool because I have a painful thought to reframe. So we're lining up here. And I remember, I'm going through this process, and I was going down this beat myself up path. And basically you have a painful thought, and you come up with a different thought that you want to replace that belief with. And the new belief, it was sort of different, but it wasn't anything. The essence of it was not anything new. It was a truth that I knew. But it was a reminder for me that, my mentor coach says that you can't be hateful for the teacher and grateful for the lesson. And so where I got to in this coaching call is that, like, I love my life where I'm at now. I love where I'm going. I'm excited about where I'm going, and I'm extremely happy with where I'm at now. And I couldn't be here without everything that I did in the past. You take one of those decisions away, and I'm in a different place. And we don't get to see those paths, but that's, you know, science fiction and like all the different, like, you know, different realities that could come up from changing one little thing. So when you look at, I'm going to relate it back to parenting, but a lot of times people resent their parents for XYZ, whatever it is that they resent their parents for. But your parents did that thing, and it's created this person that you are. And had they not done that thing, then you would be a different person, and all the things in your life would be different.
Yeah.
And I could just go on and on and on, but like,
well,
that was the truth that I came up with, or that I reminded myself of yesterday.
I think it comes back to what you're saying is really like breaking with the past entirely. And each one of us has to do that eventually, because the past is so heavy. And a lot of us have had trauma, and a lot of us have had, like, to be human, to be alive is traumatic. Like, we come in screaming and crying for a reason, you know, like, it's not fun to be in the material world. There's physical pain involved, there's emotional pain involved, and there's spiritual separation from whatever we are. We don't know. That's the mystery. I believe we're separated from God, from our source, from infinite love. You know, we talked about this at the beginning, that my mother had died September 30th, she died. And, you know, she came through a medium friend of ours, and she's like, your mother came to me, and here's what she said. And she's like, I'm surrounded by indescribable love. I'm surrounded by, you know, like undefinable beauty. And that's really, I think, what we come back to eventually. And so it's accepting the fact that we're human, accepting the fact that to be human is to suffer, and then to make the best of it. Really, because, you know, I mean, I was the victim for years. I mean, my father was an alcoholic. My mother had Asperger's. We had a broken home. You know, there was a lot of pain a lot of loneliness in my childhood. And I was around 22, and I was so sad and depressed that it was when I found those 12-step rooms, you know, the Al-Anon for families of alcoholics, really helped me learn how to break from the past and carve out a new road, a new life. And to say, okay, this reframing of every negative thought is me taking back my sovereignty. It's me taking back control of what has been out of my control my whole life. So now I have the power. I'm that powerful. I have the power to reframe all these negative ideas and beliefs. And sometimes it requires force. It requires a kind of stern grandmother from within to say, no, I evict you. This terrible thought I've been thinking for far too long. I will not think you again. I will think this. I choose this. And that act of making that decision, of making that conscious choice, first of all, requires a lot of discipline and vigilance and attentiveness. And it can take time. Yeah. And that's why I think having that practice, like you said, like working with a coach, working with somebody, having some sort of system to help you come back to that process, that you can lean on that you don't go back to your default mode all the time. That's the hardest step, is finding the thing to help you interrupt those old patterns and sticking with it over years. I mean, I've been a Course in Miracles student and 12-stepper for 15 years, Course in Miracles student for 6 years. And to be honest, I think it comes down to like, how sick are you of the mind that you live in? Like, are you so tired of yourself? Because I knew I was so sick of my old thoughts and my old frame of mind. I was just like, oh God, can we just change the channel?
Right.
And it was hard to do that.
And it's what's the saying? The pain of change has to be less than the pain of, or greater than the pain of staying the same, something along those lines.
Yeah. The pain involved in change has to be less than the pain of staying the same.
Yeah. And I was listening to a motivational speaker yesterday that was saying, don't wait until a tragedy strikes to step into the person that you are destined to be. And as beautiful as a sentiment as that is, the likelihood is slimmer. Like, there has to be some kind of catalyst where you decide to make the change. And sometimes it can be something small, like projecting yourself into the future. And one of the reasons that I made so many changes in my life and parenting was because I looked into the future and I saw my son resenting me for things that I did or didn't do. And I was like, well, I don't want that. And that was the pain of staying the same was going to be greater than the pain of changing, because I couldn't bear this little boy hating me. And so I started making changes, and that's when I started being this person that I wanted to be, somebody that I would be proud of him. The thought was, when little boys want to be like their dads and they want to marry their moms, and the thought of that terrified me on both spectrums, for both. And I was like, well, I can control me. I can't control anybody else, but I can control who I am. So that's what I'm going to do.
Yeah. That's a very, very powerful decision. Not everybody comes to that. Mm-hmm. And it is a beautiful thing, because what you've just done is you have shifted generations that come after you, for his kids and his kids' kids and their kids' kids' kids. And it's, the work we do, I always think, well, okay, if reincarnation is real, and if we're all coming back to repeat and to reap the rewards or the karma of whatever we are doing here, then, well, let's cut the time in half, and let's just, we're here. We're not going anywhere, at least for a while. Why don't we just do the hard work now? Let's just roll up our sleeves and go into the dirty places we don't want to look at. Because it's like, I think life can be so magic, so beautiful. And it really, the magic is in the transformation. It's in the experience of going from this dark, messy side to this like different, organized, clear, with clarity, open, loving, that shift. Maybe that's the whole reason why we're here, to experience that transformation, because it's so euphoric when you see your life before and you experience it after, and you're like, oh, wow, I did that. I made that change, and if that's all that life is for, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, absolutely. I have a million thoughts, but
I know. I love that we're having this conversation versus the college admissions.
Right? These are the conversations I live for. Yeah, these are the conversations I live for. And I, our pre-conversation could have been a recorded and could have been a podcast. But we'll get to cherish those on our own. Is there a piece of advice that you want to share with moms?
Well, yeah. I always feel a little bit guilty sharing advice because I'm not a mom. I just work with a lot of teenagers. And so I have a level of humility when doling out any form of advice to somebody who's living this experience that I really know nothing of.
Well, you have a puppy. It's very similar.
Sure.
That's a throwback to another episode. So it's, anyway, go ahead.
I would say, my one piece of advice is to focus on the things that you can do in your life that are demonstrative. No lecturing. You're going to give them all the opportunities that come across your path. You're going to give your kid everything you can possibly give them. But the one thing that I think many parents forget about is that kids are watching. And instead of trying to hone and shape and mold your child, what part of you needs some attention and needs some care and focus, and what needs to be expressed in you, and the more fully expressed and healed and supported you are just for yourself, the healthier and happier your child is going to be. That's my belief. Is that when we heal ourselves, we heal the world. And so the kids are merely, responding to, reflecting what is unaddressed in ourselves, within us. And, we can only do our best, that's all we can do is just do our best. And for parents out there who want help with the college admissions process, start early. If I can offer a piece of practical advice for the college process, do not wait till the end of summer when your kid's about to start senior year. They have so much going on senior year. It is I say this a lot, but it's a dumpster fire, senior fall. And, usually when parents come to me in September and October, it's like, oh my God, it's almost too late to really it turns into something chaotic, inevitably. So the students who had the best success this year, I had students get into Stanford, Dartmouth, Pitzer, Fordham, full scholarship. All of these kids started in April, May, June, starting their personal statement of their junior year. Yeah. And then they can, their senior year can be focused on learning, and focusing on their grades and their APs and the stuff. And I will say that you will actually enjoy your holiday season if you start early. But if you don't start early, this is not even a warning. It's like a certainty. Your holidays you're going to be ripping your hair out. Thanksgiving, Christmas, New Year's, start them early, get all those applications done by November 1st of the fall. If you get a big personal statement, a long YS essay, and an extracurricular done during the summer, they can easily adapt a lot of those to other prompts. And I do a lot of free workshops. So, students come to me for the expert storytelling work. So I do a ton of free workshops, and you can go to universitygurus.com/workshops. And I'm going to be putting a regular calendar going up, and we're going to start with some of our personal statement workshops and supplemental workshops in February. So, we can have students finishing up their essays by April, May, June, and then they can start working on other applications and internships and summer stuff, and maybe even get a break.
I'll be calling you in about 5 years. So
awesome. Amazing. Perfect. Yeah. But yeah, that's my advice is, do whatever you need to do to exactly what you did, Alicia, is you changed parts of yourself. You didn't try to change your kid. You worked on you. And, it starts there. And that's all I got to say about that, really.
No, I've seen it unfold in front of me. Like I've seen an example that I give a lot is he's at an age where he's starting to have a little bit of an attitude. And when I was growing up, that was not allowed. And it was, there was a lot of, you don't talk to me that way. And I remember the first time that he talked to me in a way that I was like, oh, this is that, why is he talking? Like, it was just like, it actually triggered a question of what's going on that made you talk to me that way. And that was what I said is like, why are you talking to me like that? And it shifted his mood. And he said, I'm sorry, Mom, I'm in a bad mood. I didn't ask for an apology. I didn't anything. I asked him a question. Where is that coming from? And he said, I'm sorry, Mom, I'm in a bad mood. Now I have new information. Why are you in a bad mood? Do you want to talk about it? Not right now. Okay. Let's talk about it later. And we did. And it was just, it's a totally different, it's a teachable moment versus I'm going to mold you into this person, like you said, this person that I want you to be by dominating you, which is a lot of how it used to be.
Yeah.
But,
yeah.
And is there a book that you want to recommend?
Yeah, we talked about this a couple of times over this podcast.
Yeah.
I want to recommend the Harry Potter series. And it's one of those books, like for me, that got me through some really difficult times, whether it was my parents' divorce or 8th grade, in which, girls in 8th grade are like monsters to each other. And it was the book that reminded me that there was something inside of me that was powerful. And I just couldn't access it yet, but it was there. And I think that that book has such a positive message, and not just the book, the whole book, but especially the ending of that book, which I hope I'm not spoiling it. Pause it, fast forward it if you haven't read it, but I'm sure you have. It's like zeitgeisty, but that part of the book at the end where where Voldemort kills him, but he can't kill him. That death is not real. That, it's like the idea that it's such a spiritual ending, it's such an existential spiritual ending to realize that there's so much goodness in us. We cannot die. There's no such thing as death. That we're invincible, that we're immortal. And if you actually analyze that book, aside from it being, a kid's novel, a kid's series, there are very deep spiritual lessons to be gained from that book. And they guide my whole life. And I think, and I would venture to guess that that book came about at a time for millennials that ushered in this growth mindset, this new wave, new age of thinking. I think that the Harry Potter actually had a lot to do with the current mindset of the generation we're living in now. I think it had a lot to do with it. So I thought a lot about this book. As you can see, it's like it had a huge impact on me. So
yeah, I saw a recent Facebook post that was a memory from however many years ago that I was reading it for, maybe like the 5th time. And then I don't think I've read it since. But now my son's reading it and it's really exciting. And he's come to say hi, as we wrap up the episode. Will you, tell our listeners where they can find you?
Yes, you can go to my Linktree, linktree.com/IamKateStone, and you're going to find my free workshops on universitygurus.com. You're going to find I have a 7-week Heart Speak empowerment program for young women. You're going to find my 30-day motivation text course for Gen Zers. I've got a lot of content out there. Whether you have a teenager that's about to apply to college and needs help writing their essays and application, or whether you just have a kid that's struggling to stay motivated and get their stuff together. I do a lot of work with personal development and executive functioning as well. So you can go to heartspeak.school, universitygurus.com, or just go to my linktree.com /I am Kate Stone with a K.
Awesome. Well, thank you for being here and having multiple wonderful conversations with me, some recorded, some not. And yeah, I appreciate everything that you've poured into our listeners and into me, and multiple times you gave me goosebumps, and I refrained from saying, "Oh, I just got goosebumps" each time.
Oh, cool. Oh, that's awesome. I had some too. I almost cried on this podcast a couple times.
Yeah. And you're like, and we're just talking about college applications.
It's the times we're in, it's all grist for the mill, I suppose,
For sure. So we'll have another episode of Imperfect Momming for you next week. And until then, keep healing. Bye, guys.
Thank you for tuning in to Imperfect Momming. It's time for us to step up and realize that our power is not in trying to shape our children. Our power lies in shaping ourselves into the people we want our children to model themselves after. Don't just do it for your kids. Do it for yourself. When you become a more self-aware, compassionate, and confident person, you and everyone around you benefit. For more information about me and my work, visit AliciaLyons.com. That's ALYSIALYONS.com. See you next time.